It's Friday, and although this is no longer a work day of mine, I am covering for my manager today as she's off to Llandudno. Indeed, for the next 5 days, I am in charge of the charity shop, and goodness me, have I got a lot to contend with. Fewer volunteers in the afternoon due to loads of people have disappeared now, and an abundance of donations that have been piling up for at least 3 weeks now, and we're unable to get through them because we don't have enough people to help us sort them. So getting 50 to 60 bags through the door per day and trying to find one person to sort that out. After Monday, we could leave this room clear, and by Wednesday morning it's going to be absolutely packed again, and it's a struggle. But I am reading A Spring of Love by Celia. I have been disappointed by my reading this year, so I have set myself the challenge to try and read 10 books this month, because that is what I've always liked to do. It's a number that I like as an average. I am now 246 pages into this. I want to get to at least page 300 today, with the possibility of finishing it tomorrow and then starting something else on Sunday, which will bring me to 3 books read, which I don't think works in the grand scheme of things, because it'll be 3 books by the 10th, right? And then 1 week, if I read another 3, that's only going to take us up to 6. Oh, but then if I read another 3, that would take me up to 9. And then if I read another 3, that would take me up to 12. So if I read 3 books a week, I could do it. Am I going to be able to read 3 books a week until the end of the month? Probably not. As we've seen from my TBR, I do have plans of what I want to read this month, and some of them are shorter books. But due to overtime and everything, I'm probably only going to get an hour to read today. And that might be the same for Saturday. Sunday, I should have some more time, but given the fact that I am currently looking after my sister's dog because she's on holiday, I don't know how much time I'm going to have. Maybe she'll just lie there whilst I read. Anyway, in A Spring of Love by Celia. Esther is living a regular life. She lives with her grandmother. Her grandfather died many moons ago, leaving her with a house, a shop, and she has steady income coming from this job. Every Thursday she goes to the cinema and she goes out for a meal. While she's out for a meal, she meets Raymond, and they embark upon a relationship. However, the reader can tell, not least because the blurb gives it away, that Raymond isn't all he seems to be. There's definite tensions there. Throughout the book, you know there's something going on that he's not revealing. He's a bit too perfect. He works away a lot, and he keeps trying to gain access to Esther's money and trying to get Esther to do specific things for him money-wise. And there was a scene on top of a cliff recently that was somewhat fear-inducing, so looking forward to seeing what happens in the final 120 pages of this. Basically, I'm thinking of running this vlog for the 5 days that I'm in work, but we'll see. It's interesting to read this book having just read the Mary Stuart Madam Will You Talk, where the protagonist of that charity knowingly entered into a relationship with a man who had been done for murder, thinking and hoping that he wasn't actually a murderer, just making this decision herself that he wasn't. Where here it's more of a, that was very cosmopolitan, it's all in Europe and there's racing of cars and everything. Here it's more quiet and more tense, and it's just in a suburban household, and really Celia is just taking us behind closed doors. Considering there's about 5 years between the 2 books, it's interesting to see the difference there. Anyway, I'm going to try and get a bit read before my volunteers get here, so I will speak to you when I speak to you. So this one will have to be quick because people could arrive at any moment. I arrived to work with the intention of getting on here immediately, but somebody had torn open all of the bags in the skip and thrown them over the car park, so I had to deal with that before doing anything else. It is Saturday, and yesterday I finished reading A Spring of Love by Celia. This is a book in which the first part greatly outweighs the second part in how good it was. I thoroughly enjoyed the tension in the first part and the build-up of these dark machinations of the character of Raymond. The reader and characters within the story could tell he was a bit of a cad and what he was doing wrong. But his wife Esther, our protagonist, hadn't yet realised this. She'd had inklings but not done anything about it, and because she'd been able to assuage him and get him to move on from certain ideas, she'd just let it blow over. And then we got to the second part, and in the final 2 chapters, which take up about 40 to 50 pages, everything hits the fan. We get revelations about Raymond, and then the book ends. However, there wasn't really any build up to these revelations. There was nothing that the reader could have seen on the page themselves to think, oh, that's the direction this book was going to go in. If I'd seen more about stuff that a certain character found in newspaper articles and then shared with the police, it would have been more interesting for me, and it wouldn't have felt like it had just been thrown in there in the hopes of ending the story. Indeed, part of me wishes that Esther had been the one to find out these things for herself. Yeah, it was a very unfortunate ending, because where I began reading again last night, I was really looking forward to, because I knew that we were going to go into a particularly tense scene and we're going to get to see Raymond's true character. I could tell by who'd entered the room and how Raymond felt about them. And then it didn't go that way. It's like, okay, then maybe that's going to be a revelation that helps us figure out that he's a bad un. And it didn't. All the people that had been against him were sad for Esther, and so they were leaving their situation. So basically the story ends with everyone having lost, which fine, you know, this is a tale of crime from the regular people and seeing how it affects the regular people as opposed to a focus on the crime perhaps. But I was disappointed by the end. It doesn't mean I'm not going to stop reading Celia Dale. I think that I just haven't found a book of hers that has impressed me like Sheep's Clothing did. For me, Sheep's Clothing went the way I'd wanted it to. And I know there's quite a big gap between this book and that book, and Sheep's Clothing came out much later than A Spring of Love, so maybe she'd improved as a writer by then. But this one, unfortunately, whilst there's great writing at the beginning, and actually, you know, I think there's great writing throughout, and I think that I was very impressed by that. And as it said on the back, I appreciate the way that Celia Dale writes about the normal things, so that's fine. I just don't think that the ending matched how good it had been in the beginning. But I'll continue to read this author. If Daunt Books continues to bring out her books, I'll get them from there, but I might go and source some secondhand copies when I'm eventually buying books again. I'm not on a book buying ban, but I'm just trying to get through some more books on my shelves at the moment. So I brought Mother Naked to work with me today. This is a book I borrowed from the library based on the recommendation of Ben at Ben Reads Good and Katie of Books and Things, and I'm hoping to read 100 pages today and maybe finish it tomorrow. But we'll see, because got some overtime this week, and maybe that's all I'm going to want to do in an evening, is just read and decompose. Hopefully tonight I'll be going home, I will be getting some tea, watching the latest episode of Doctor Who, of which unfortunately, even though it's only 9 o'clock, I've already seen spoilers. And then hunker down, win me book and read. So I'm going to disappear, and I might just do that. It is absolutely unprecedented. I'm at work again. It's Monday. I did not update you yesterday for very good reason. I was reading. I finished Mother Naked yesterday morning. I thought it somewhat superb. I did not know what to expect from this one. I knew that Ben had recommended it and Katie had recommended it, but it was historical, and in the past I have struggled with a few historical reads. The part about this book that really intrigued me was the storytelling aspect. The fact that we are getting this tale told from the perspective of Mother Naked, and it's a performance. So Mother Naked is presenting their story to a group of richer people than themselves. Although you know that there have been asides from the audience and jeers, you don't get to see on page what has been said. And I liked it. It gave it an almost monologue aspect. Another thing that I really liked was the deviations that Mother Naked took from the tale. It's incredibly non-linear and it goes all over the place. And I found myself thoroughly invested in this story, reading it exceptionally quickly because I didn't want to do anything else. I wanted to find out what happened, what was going to happen, where the story was going, who Mother Naked was. Actually, I was impressed. In fact, when I'd finished it, I regretted having not bought a copy, but then thought, actually, it was probably best to get it from the library because at least I now know that when I eventually get myself a copy, it's a book that I have enjoyed and want to reread, as opposed to just the possibility of that. Will I reread it before I take it back to the library? Oh, it's a possibility. It just came to me then that I could do, because I took it out on Thursday. I've still got another 2 weeks with it, so there's always another chance that I could get in there and get it reread before I take it back, because I did enjoy it. Will I? We'll see, because there are many other things that I had on my May TBR. I will thank Ben and Katie for the recommendation of that book because it suited my tastes to a T. It reminded me of the grimmest, goriest parts of Hilary Mantel, similar to Beyond Black or Every Day is Mother's Day, where there is a darkness but there is a bit of a wry humour there, and the things that happen while the reader doesn't necessarily want them to happen suit the story and feel like that is exactly what would have occurred at the time. And then, out of nowhere, I read the Theban plays of Sophocles, and unfortunately have already forgotten who translated this one, but I will leave that linked somewhere. On Saturday, we had a lot of books donated to the charity shop. Vintage books, we're talking the Penguin Orange Spines, some older classic titles, which I immediately put straight out. And then we had this small hardcover edition of the Theban plays. And I have not really had an interest in ancient Greek. Well, that's a lie. Back when I was at school, the careers advisor told me it was unlikely that I would end up getting to study creative writing, so I needed to apply for something else, not recognising that I couldn't actually do that, so tried to get me to apply for classics as well. I think they basically got me confused. Anyway, me and this careers advisor spent years arguing with each other because they said that writing wasn't a viable career and tried to get me to go down the teaching route. That's how I ended up taking child development, which was a course I didn't want to take. Me and children, they're alien to me. Anyway, I ended up lying to this flaming thing and trying to apply for a classics course. It didn't happen. I would never have had the requisite skills to have taken classics. Either way, that's probably the last time I had any intention of going towards A Tale from Greece. I like this. The reason I wanted to go to this, I should say, is because last Wednesday at Poems and Pies, somebody read something inspired by an ancient Greek play, and their poem was a riff and a parody of that based on where they had worked before retirement. So it was in my head, and then it was on the table yesterday after I'd finished Mother Naked. And my mother said, since it was nice and warm and we couldn't take the dogs anywhere because of how hot it was, should we go on the garden with wine and our books? So we went into the garden with wine and our books, and we read for a couple of hours, sat in the sun. I'm just hoping that I do not burn. What did I think of the Theban plays? I knew everything that was going to happen. I'm unsure how I had the knowledge that all of this was going to happen. I don't know whether it comes from all of the documentaries that I used to watch with my grandfather. I think we all know the tale of Oedipus. I can remember watching a version of it on BBC 4 way back when. I knew the story, but I did enjoy the telling. I was wondering about the translation of it because of the parts where the chorus would rhyme, and there is something within the writing that does have a rhythm to it, and I wonder, is this how the text is in pre-translation, or is it something that is added after translation, and is that more difficult? I will be having a look. I will be doing a little bit of research. I've already got a list of things I want to look up after reading Mother Naked, so that seems to be the thing about my reading recently, is noticing something that I want more information about and writing it down to then go and research later. I've also found YouTube to be a great resource for some historical context, because people, if you're looking out for something, the information will be there, and I am looking forward to going and finding that. Anyway, my volunteers are likely to be here soon. It's likely to be a very busy day because I've got the Ragman coming. I still haven't got a paying in book. I've got paperwork to do and clothes to cull and clothes to sort, and I also have to try and get summer bags in here and try and get the books sorted too. So, oh, I should also say I bought The Comforters by Muriel to read, but will I get the chance to? I don't know. But I'll see you when I see you. Well, you know how it is. You sit down and realise you've left your coffee in the other room. It's Tuesday, and yesterday I didn't really read much. And do I have an excuse for that? Do I have a reason? No. I don't. Not a single iota of a reason as to why I only read 30 pages of The Comforters by Muriel Spark, because I was enjoying it and I was finding it rather humorous. Admittedly, I didn't get to read much yesterday. Soon after I stopped recording, my volunteer arrived, and then I didn't get to read until I got home, and that didn't really happen until 10 o'clock. So it was a washout, and I don't know how I'm going to do given this overtime. I know many people do days in a row and they're able to contend with it, but I am old and arthritic, and I left here yesterday quite knackered, so I didn't really have the stuff going on in here that felt conducive to reading. But hopefully that will change today. When I leave here, I will go home, I will see the dogs, I will make some tea, and then get ready to do all this over again tomorrow. Ugh. We'll see how it goes. It hasn't been the most busy at the shop recently, which can be quite worrisome, but I think it's because we've got so many empty units around us. Mondays we were having successful days, really. We were hitting our targets, but ever since these places closed, we've just been seeing a decline in the number of people that are stepping over the threshold. It could just be me. I could have insulted too many people in the town. I'm hoping it's not me. But for now, what I'm going to say is that I am going to disappear, going to go and find my coffee, and I'll speak to you tomorrow. It's Wednesday, and this is the last day that I will be sharing anything for a vlog, because we have reached my final day of, well, it wasn't even overtime. We reached my final day of this long stretch that began on Friday, and I have managed to read a fair bit in that time. I finished A Spring of Love by Celia, Mother Naked, the Sophocles Theban plays, and I am nearly done with The Comforters. Indeed, I'll be finished with that this evening, and I'm glad of that. I've wanted to try and read more this month. I want to make sure that I read 10 books, because 10 was the average I used to have, and I want to get back into reading. And I'm aware that these have been shorter titles that I've been reading, but I still feel like there was something within every single one of the books that had merit. Whereas I think in the past, we're talking 2 months ago, I read He-Man, Ladybird books and included them in my total of books read, and those, would I ordinarily have done that? Probably not. But then I don't know how we count them, or whether we do discount them. Either way, I'm glad to have read a lot of things that for the most part I've enjoyed. Indeed, every single one of the books that I have read I have found something in that I've enjoyed, that I have liked. And so I'm glad to have had 4 titles that have all been very good and have continued this run throughout May of good things, of finding good books and reading the good books and enjoying the good books. Long may it continue. I think that I'll be reading Girt, the story of Australia, next, simply because one of our volunteers picked up a non-fiction book about Australia yesterday and has taken that to read, and I said, well, I know that you liked Unruly, which was the David Mitchell, I believe there's a bit of humour behind that. I think you'll like this, so I'm going to read this and then bring it in for him. So that's where I'll be heading to next, and you might get to see that at some point. But thank you for sticking around with me for this length of time. I'm in work a bit later today because my elder brother arrived. He's come to help with some lambing things. Castration's happening today. Oh, the joys of farming. I'm so glad that I am not in it. I'm so glad I'm not there. Goodness me. Spending a really hot May day in a field castrating lambs. It's not my idea of a good time. Either way, I'm gonna go, I'm gonna do some reading, I'm gonna make some coffee, and I will see you when I see you. Thank you very much if you stuck around this entire time. I hope that you have enjoyed this video, because until next time, that is all.